Last weekend, I officiated at a wedding. In many ways, it looked like your average marriage ceremony. The groom wore a suit, the bride a beautiful dress. There was a chuppah and a kiddush cup and a ketubah. There was a cake that wished the wedding couple mazel tov. But when we came to the part of the ceremony for vows, instead of exchanging rings, the couple exchanged markers. And instead of saying the traditional vow, "Behold, you are consecrated to me by this ring according to the laws of Moses and Israel," each partner said, "By this marker, I promise to be your friend for the rest of the school year." You see, the bride and groom were 9 years old. And I was filling in for Rabbi Milder at the mock wedding of Congregation Beth Emick's 4th grade class. In preparation for their wedding ceremony, the 4th graders each wrote their own ketubah, or wedding contract, for their future spouse. There were some delightfully specific promises, like the vow to always have Taco Tuesday in her future home. But I was pleased to see that among the common themes were to share the responsibility for household tasks and to help one another when they need it. Also to take care of the couple's cats. There were a lot of cat lovers in Beth Emick's 4th grade class. It was heartening to see these children understand marriage to include mutual respect, love and care for each other and their pets, and friendship, as the markers represented. Though none of the kids used the term, they were all identifying a key component of loving relationships: chesed. Chesed can be translated as grace, love, kindness, or loving kindness. I prefer to define it as love in action. It describes acts of love performed in the context of a relationship. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs translates chesed as covenantal love. He writes, "What is chesed? It is usually translated as kindness, but it also means love. Not love as emotion or passion, but love expressed as deed." Theologians define chesed as covenant love. Covenant is the bond by which two parties pledge themselves to one another, each respecting the freedom and integrity of the other, agreeing to join their separate destinies into a single journey that they will travel together, fearing no evil, for you are with me. Unlike a contract, he says, it is an open-ended relationship lived toward an unknown future. The ultimate example of covenantal love comes in this Shabbat's Torah portion, Yitro, which describes the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai. The sages were fond of characterizing this moment of revelation as a wedding ceremony. God is the groom, of course. The Jewish people are the bride, and the Torah is the ketubah. At Sinai, God promises to show the people chesed to the 1,000th generation, as long as the people love God and keep God's commandments in return. The people accept the terms of the covenant even before they hear the details. As we read, all those assembled answered as one, saying, "All that Adonai has spoken, we will do." The covenant is even more explicitly tied to the concept of chesed in Deuteronomy, where God is described as Ha'el HaNe'eman Shomer Habrit VeHaChesed, the faithful God who keeps the covenant of chesed with Israel. Israel shows chesed by following God's commandments and by worshiping only God, and God shows Israel chesed by keeping God's promises and blessing Israel. As in all strong marriages, the bond between God and Israel is maintained and strengthened through acts of loving kindness. But lest we think that chesed only refers to divine love, the Bible is also full of examples of human acts of chesed. Here are just a few examples. Sarah does an act of chesed for Abraham when she pretends to be his sister instead of his wife so that King Avimelech won't kill Abraham in order to take Sarah as his wife. Jacob asks his son Joseph to do an act of chesed and not bury him in Egypt, but instead to take his bones back to the land of Israel to be buried with his family. And Ruth shows chesed to her mother-in-law Naomi by marrying her kinsman Boaz in order to redeem the family's land. You might notice that in these examples, the action described is difficult or unpleasant. Sarah suffers the humiliation and potential danger of pretending to be an unmarried woman, available to be taken into Avimelech's house by force. Joseph has to schlep his father's bones all the way from Egypt to the family burial plot in Canaan. Ruth marries Boaz, an older man she doesn't know that well, to ensure the redemption of her mother-in-law's land. In these cases, love isn't expressed through bouquets of roses or Hallmark cards. Love is expressed through sacrifice and selflessness. You might also notice that in the cases I mentioned, the one who performs the act of chesed is asked to do it. Sarah agrees to lie for her husband after he pleads with her. Joseph agrees to bury Jacob in Canaan after Jacob makes him swear an oath on his deathbed. Ruth offers herself to Boaz only at Naomi's urging. We might be tempted to think less of these acts because they are not offered freely, but only agreed to, perhaps reluctantly. But I think there is a special beauty and a special poignance in these acts of love as response to another's request. It is easy, or at least easier, to be loving and generous when we get to decide how and when to express that love. When we're in good spirits or have had some good fortune, it's only natural to want to share our joy with those we love, to make them happy as we are happy. But chesed isn't dependent on being in the right mood or in the right situation. In fact, true acts of chesed are often performed exactly when we don't feel like doing them, but do them anyway. Chesed for us may not look like it does in the Bible. Let's hope we're not called upon to risk our own lives to save our spouses. But a chesed emerges in more modest ways every single day. Chesed is getting down on the floor to play with a small child, even when it hurts our knees or back, and even when the game we're playing isn't interesting to anyone over the age of 3. Chesed is attentively listening to a friend talk about a hobby or passion at length, just because we love them, not because we care about pickleball or bird watching or transcendental meditation.
Oh, you had to do that.
That was for you, Rachel, yes. Chesed is sitting in the hospital at a loved one's bedside, hour after hour, just to make sure they know they're never alone. These acts of chesed are what nourish our most cherished relationships and ensure that they endure. The sages ask why the book of Ruth should be included in the Bible in the first place. There are no miracles or prophecies in the story, no mystical revelations or sources for halakha, Jewish law. But as Rabbi Sarah concludes, why is it written? To teach us the greatness of the reward for acts of chesed. And what is that reward? The book ends with Ruth giving birth to a son. And we read, they named him Oved. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David. Because of the steadfast devotion of a poor, foreign widow to her mother-in-law, King David is born into the world. And with him, the hope for the future Messiah, the hope for an age of harmony, justice, and peace. In other words, chesed gives us just a taste of heaven on earth. And it tastes even better than a box of chocolates. Shabbat Shalom, and happy Valentine's Day.